Hello. My name is Willow Idlewild, and I'm here to talk to you today about the San Leandro Resilience Hubs network. Based on our last meeting, we had two main questions. What are we doing, and who is driving this thing? What are we doing? So much, but we need to figure out how we show each other what it is we're up to and how we talk about it. And who is driving? I think we all are. I'm going to tell you today about leaderful networks and uh, uh, leaderful movements. So, after our meeting last time, I talked to a few folks and reviewed a bunch of content that you all already have, and that has informed this presentation. So, there's a lot of good work already happening, and we're achieving lots of incredible goals, but we still kind of feel directionless, it feels like. So, I wanted to tell you that I think that direction already exists and what it is. So, I think that we are mostly just missing the language of networks. So how can I help? I'm going to give you a little bit of context on me and then talk about a shared language and then tell you about a mirror that I think we could be using. And then I have a proposal for us. So context on me, I tell you these things so that you understand where I'm coming from. This is not to say that I am an expert in these things. It is only to say that I have thought deeply about them and that I am excited. I am thrilled to be talking about it with y'all. So back in 2010, I created a group called Geeks Without Bounds, which was a hackathon host and accelerator for humanitarian and disaster response technology. I then went on to be a community leadership strategist at Aspiration in that same disaster and humanitarian response technology. And in that overlapping time and beyond, I was a coordinator for the Digital Humanitarian Network out of UN OSHA, Office of Coordinated Humanitarian Affairs, bringing together a group of digital disaster response groups to do responses. In that time, I worked with the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. I worked with FEMA. I worked with Doctors Without Borders, and I worked even with NASA. And we did things like, and then I went on to spend some time thinking about this in an academic sense at Harvard, at MIT, and at Brown. So I have a lot of language about this stuff, and I would like to start establishing what that language is with y'all so we can talk about these things with more confidence. So first up is this idea of shared language. There's this fabulous book called Seeing Like a State, which talks about how governments have to make things predictable in a way for their citizens, but that also removes a lot of the nuance. And in disaster response, what that looks like is that what we plan for is in a range of no ability to handle a fire through to ready to fight the biggest fire we've ever heard of. There are fire trucks and there are fire brigades, and we even have an extra fire brigade for the really big fires that we're not sure of. And in this range, we train up and we resource ourselves as the state. But fire and climate change, fires are getting bigger. And so what the state can plan for is no longer sufficient. So we already went through some of these things. So we already have a pretty good idea of how large organizations work, how our Office of Emergency Management works, things like that. They help with demolition and cleaning, with keeping people warm, with deploying food and water, and they usually deploy a large amount of materials to, for instance, a box store parking lot. And then all the people in the houses have to leave their houses to go to the box store in order to get those supplies. So we have a pretty good idea of how that works, but how do the networks work? What happens for the people who can't leave their homes? How are neighbors taking care of each other? This is a case study of Occupy Sandy and how knowledge was transferred across the network and how people uplifted each other in that. So you might surface knowledge to a local topic node. So this might be in the kitchen or in the distribution center. And this has to do with a lot of writing things in the space. Then you have sharing knowledge across a topic in a shared location. So how does the kitchen work with the distribution center in order to get meals out to people in the field? And this has a lot to do with meetings. Then there is transferring knowledge on a shared topic to a different location. So the
the kitchen at Jacoby and the kitchen at Clinton would have people migrate between them so that they could share knowledge, like putting a damp towel under a cutting board so that it doesn't move when you're cutting things, which reduces injuries. So to facilitate this sort of thing, in addition to having at least one day off, you were also encouraged to have at least one day in the field to understand how the rest of the system worked. So, and then there's knowledge transfer to other networks. So when the tornadoes were happening after Sandy, people from Occupy Sandy started showing up for the tornado responses to help distribute that knowledge as well. So I think that we can have that sort of shared language as well. And let's see. So our three areas are resilience, disaster response, and community. And so how are we starting to share things like that? And I would like to propose that we come up with a mirror. And I have drafted this out a very small amount, but I like databases. I think that we could have some hubs in here of what the different hubs are, their full name, who the members are, any notes, status, website, what projects they're working on, the members that are associated with each hub and how to get a hold of them, how they like to work, what projects they're working on, and then where their focus is. Is it in disaster response, resilience, or community? And then this is where it starts to get really interesting, is if we list out our projects and understand what the current status is and what the blockers are, then we can start to have a conversation about problem solving with each other and skill sharing across our network. So if you all like that, we can keep working on it together. And if you don't like it, it's fine. I spent like 15 minutes on it, not a big deal. So finally, some proposals of how to move forward. As far as resilience, SL 2050 is totally rocking this. Patty has it in hand. There's nothing more for us to do here except show up and support that work and do our part. For disaster response, I think that we should aim for, in a year, doing a tabletop exercise where there's an earthquake in San Leandro and how we all come together and how we come together with the city in order to understand what our gaps are and how our current projects feed into a disaster response. And as far as community, I'm a pretty socially anxious person, and I think community happens in the doing. I don't know how to talk to people outside of projects, so our community will be bolstered by us doing this work together. So that's what I've got. Who are our leaders in all of this? Going back to our original question, I think we're all the leaders in this. We are all showing up on behalf of our hubs. We are doing the work there and then coming together to talk about what it looks like. And a leaderful movement has protocols for interaction that everyone agrees to, and then everyone can interact on that front as equals. So I think that we're all the leaders here. Kimberly is going to take it away now with how we are starting to make some of those decisions.